Welcome to this video tutorial for Virtual Racing School with the global Mazda MX-5 Cup car. This time we're running at the legendary Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca circuit, where I've driven a lap on the baseline setup in default afternoon weather for the data pack on the VRS app. So before I go into the analysis, I'll play the lap through first in full. Okay, so that was 1 minute 38.434. So to start things off, from the list of data packs on the VRS website, we're going to choose the Mazda MX-5 Global Cup car, and we'll choose week 4, which is Laguna Seca. Loads up the session details, where you can download lap files, a replay. The setup is just the baseline. We're going to click on Learn Track, which is going to load up the analyzer, and it will start to play the lap through. As soon as that starts, I'm just going to pause it and talk you through the telemetry traces here. So we've got a steering angle trace across the duration of the lap, as well as a speed trace and a brake and throttle trace, and finally some inputs, live inputs at the bottom. So start things off, we're going to select sector 1, which is going to be the run from the start finish line to the braking point for turn 1. So just play that through, just hug the wall on the left, over the top of the hill, again hugging these bollards on the left, and then take a nice straight diagonal line to the outside for the braking zone for turn 1, which is going to be, you're going to spot this 3 marker which has a painted horizontal line on the circuit. You're going to brake pretty much there or just before, and you'll see I actually, in my pedal inputs here, you can see that I just clip the throttle on the downshift, and then I'm blipping for each downshift. So I'm right foot braking and I'm heel toe downshifting to blip the throttle to rev match, so the rear tyres don't lock up. But I'm not braking very aggressively, so about 50% there maximum. Ease the car into the apex. There's 2 apexes here, so you need to hit your first apex fairly soon, and make sure that you keep that brake pedal on to keep the front end loaded up, to keep the nose rotating into the corner. But then you want to pick up the throttle nice and early, and if you have held onto the brake pedal nice and late, then you should have enough rotation, and you should have got rid of enough speed to allow you to pick up the throttle in between the 2 apexes. So here I am back on the throttle quite hard well before I've reached that second apex. And a slight bit of modulation as I wait for the car to grip, and then once I know that I've got the grip for the exit, I reach full throttle. And in terms of my car positioning here, I've also reached that second curb, and then I'm tracking out to the exit curb as well, just to lift to change gear. Of course, don't have to do that. You can actually flat shift, full throttle shift in this car if you desire. bring the car back over to the left hand side nice and early so that you can straighten the car for the braking zone into the right hander. So we'll go to sector 3 for that one. Braking quite briefly on the curb, and then as you come off the curb, come off those brakes, and this time I'm actually left foot braking, so you'll see that I actually breathe on the throttle here just briefly, just there. What that's doing is taking some load off the front tyres and just reducing the amount of turning that I've got. So I'm just playing with the pedals on entry just to set the car up for the perfect line on the entry here. So I want to aim for this curb at the apex, but I don't want to hit that red curb if possible. I might have just caught it there, but I think I got away with it this time. So those red curbs are elevated slightly, and they will upset the car if you clout them too hard. So still on the curb just after the red one. I'm at full throttle now, powering out to the outside of the circuit for the exit. Some wiggles in the steering trace can be seen, just feeling for some oversteer, anticipating that I might get some. And fortunately I've kept the car as well within the edge of the gravel there, but using all of the track. Bring the car back over to the right very briefly, and then into the right hander. You want to bring the car back over to the left, taking again full advantage of the full width of the circuit. So being fully onto this curb on the entry just allows me to carry a bit more speed into the next corner, which is turn 4. So I actually start turning in for this one on the power. I have had a slight confidence lift, so but then it's kind of when I'm in the middle of the circuit that I have a full lift, and I'm also just kind of breathing on the brake pedal here. I'm just kind of covering the brakes, so I'm not needing to downshift. So my left foot is covering the brakes here, but I don't actually need it. And the car is nicely positioned here. That's kind of where you want it to be. I've already picked up the throttle, but I'm not quite at full throttle yet. So, but I'll just show you the car positioning. Just go back a tiny bit there. So just avoid this red curb again. And tracking out to the exit, again using all of the curb available. Unfortunately, I don't drop any wheels onto the gravel there. So just hug the right hand side, run the car along this curb on the right all the way down to the braking zone for turn 5, and you'll spot this second painted white line which is in between the 3 and the 2 marker. So we're going to have to right foot brake again this time if you want to use the clutch, which means a little bit less braking finesse. But yeah, braking hard initially and then bleeding off as you turning in fairly soon and spotting your apex. The circuit has a decent amount of camber in the middle of the corner here, so you can afford to take a fairly early apex and pick up the throttle nice and early as well. So I pretty much picked up the throttle just as I'm apexing, and I reach full throttle quite quickly as well. The car doesn't have much power. Run the car out to the exit curb as well and use all of that. So as we approach turn 6 now, which is arguably one of the most difficult corners on the circuit, very much about timing. Just bring the car again out right onto the edge of that curb, so we've almost got our wheels into the gravel here. Might have the outside edge in the gravel there. Go to sector 6 for this, and we're going to turn in just before this painted line, just after the 2 marker. Now timing is absolutely critical here, and you'll notice that I'm left foot braking again. I just dab the brake for confidence and kind of breathe on the throttle before lifting and playing about with the throttle a bit more. I'm just trying to feel the car to get right on the perfect line. So I've turned in there, the car's rotated well, which is why I'm back on the throttle just to push the car out a bit. But I've managed to hook up really nicely with the apex here. So onto that curb, but I've avoided the red curb. Now this is certainly one of the corners where if you do hit that red curb, it's going to massively upset the car and it'll probably push you wide on the exit. So I pick up the throttle at the apex, slight bit of hesitation, but I reach full throttle before I've reached the apex curb there. And unfortunately I was able to keep the car from dropping any wheels onto the gravel there, which can be easily done, and it can also reduce your exit speed. Up the hill now, bring the car nice and gradually over to the left, a nice straight line up the hill. Run over this curb on the left as you approach the braking zone for the corkscrew, where we're going to turn right just before the top of the hill, and we're going to aim for this curb roughly where the 3 marker is here. And again, right foot braking into the corkscrew. We've got 2 downshifts to do, and we're going to keep the car right, going to run along this curb on the right hand side, slow the speed right down, and hold those brakes as you turn left right up until the point where you get back on the throttle. And you want to use a decent amount of this first curb on the inside. You can probably be even more greedy with the curb than I've been there. And then at the apex, you want to be picking up the throttle nice and hard at the apex and looking for this tree with the funny shaped trunk here. That's going to be your target as the circuit drops down the hill. Now I'm upshifting at this point, which is why I'm out of the throttle. And then as soon as you come down the hill, you need to keep the car hard to the right, and then follow the track nice and tight through the exit, bringing the car over to the right hand side of the circuit as you approach this entry curve to open up the next corner, which is Rainy Curve, turn 9. So we go to sector 8 for that, and I do actually have a miss shift up to 4th gear here on the entry, which fortunately doesn't really cost me any time. So you see I have to go for the clutch twice and hesitate a little bit longer with the throttle, but that's okay, got away with it, and I was able to hook up with my apex really nicely. So it's very much about car positioning, so you can carry a decent amount of throttle into the corner as long as you have a good long lift, so that the car will bite back into the camber of the circuit and you hook up nicely with this apex. If you hook up nicely with this apex, you can pick up the throttle at the apex, and you'll be able to reach full throttle relatively early as well on the exit. A little bit of room to spare there, not quite using all of the curb, which is fine. That's kind of what you want, because then it's a lot easier to bring the car back over to the left hand side for braking into the fast right of turn 10, where again you want to be up onto the entry curb on the left hand side as we brake just before the 2 marker. Now I'm left foot braking here, no need to downshift, but you can see that I'm kind of playing with the throttle 3 times in fact on the entry. So I'm mostly braking here just to rotate the car, and I'm kind of stabilizing the car with a bit of the throttle sort of when I overdo it. So we just play that through, turning in just before the 1 marker, so not too early. Again, very much about timing. You want to hook up into the camber of the corner. There's lots of grip at the apex, and you should, if you do it nicely, be able to pick up the throttle at the apex. I'm a tiny little bit wide of where is optimal there, but it's important to avoid that red curb on the inside if you can. So pick up the throttle, slight bit of hesitation just before the exit, as I'm not quite sure if I'm going to make it without running wide. Fortunately the car grips up, and I just about managed to get through there without dropping any wheels off over the curb, so that was quite nice. Now into the last corner, you probably want to brake at the 2 marker for this one, but on this particular lap I've been a little bit too early, too cautious on the brakes, and I've almost cut the inside of the last corner too much, but fortunately I got away with it, and it actually was quite a quick line in the end. So you'll see braking quite hard into this one, a couple of blips down 2 gears, don't turn in too soon, keep the car out to the right until the last minute, but then make sure that you can make it to this apex curb. Now I do actually hit the red curb this time, which is okay here. The speeds are very low, and I'm able to pick up the throttle nice and early at the apex. Slight bit of hesitation as I wait for the car to straighten up, and a small correction for oversteer there, just catching the oversteer. Really want to try and get on the power as early as possible, and that's the reason for that. And opening the car up, just dropping a couple of wheels, my outside wheels, onto the AstroTurf there on the exit. If you allow more than half the car's width to exceed the edge of the curb there, you'll get a slowdown penalty. So just be aware of that. And that's pretty much a good lap at Mazda Raceway Laguna Seca. As ever, you can find qualifying and race setups, telemetry and replays over at virtualracingschool.com, where you can also book one-on-one tuition with myself and top drivers from the likes of Commander Simsport. Good luck for this week, and feel free to post any questions or comments below. Thanks for watching.